Just a reminder before today's programme that if you missed it, you can check out the previous instalment of the Ident Review Extra, where we took a look at the very popular and very pretty Optics. And now, here on AMTV, time for the most recent instalment of the Ident Review Extra, and this time, things are getting a little more spooky. Hello, and welcome to the Ident Review Extra, the spin-off show that takes a look at one individual ident each episode and gives it the review it deserves. And today we continue our marathon through the BBC2 idents of the 1990s. Today in our BBC2 journey, we're going to be looking at an ident that I've technically already covered. In fact, the trio of terrors tonight were actually the subject of the first ever episode of the original ident review. I decided to include them once again on our BBC2 marathon because it's been over 2 years and hopefully my analysis will be a little more polished and detailed than it was then. Also, it'd be a shame to miss them out, for after being deemed lost for many years, we now have the footage of these unique idents. So without further ado, let's take a look at what BBC2 debuted on the 31st of October, 1992. Halloween night.
Is BBC2. Now, lock the door.
Talk about twisting the familiar. So this is the first variant that aired, and immediately you can tell the setup is the same as it would have been for the first ident of this era, paint. But instead of the aqua blue tones splashing over the two, instead it's bright red blood, and I have to say, for something as short a sequence as an ident, I think the blood actually looks kind of convincing. Like they could have really gone over the top and hammed it up, but the tone of the blood combined with the growing groan of the chainsaw actually succeeds in making something quite eerie sounding, and very appropriate for Halloween night. The second part of the sequence reveals the screaming chainsaw, which proceeds to decapitate the poor two, but this is obviously a homage to one of the originators of the slasher genre, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Also, before we go on to the second variant, it's surprising how seriously the team at the BBC took these, and I'm quite surprised they went as far as they did, tame as it may seem today. So with that, let's move on to our second Halloween night ident. Well, I think it's fair to say my thoughts haven't changed much on this one. I know you haven't seen the third variant yet, but trust me, this is the most lackluster of the 3 variants you're going to see today. The setup starts already being half done, with one crocodile clip already attached, and once the other one is, we see the electricity spark, but is it just me, or does this really look obviously superimposed over the two? There's no real sense of threat or danger here, no eerie build-up that variant 1 had, it just appears, happens, and ends. As soon as we see the electricity, we know that's the punchline in a way, and I'm sure they could have done something a little different to switch it up, even changing it from the paint setup to maybe another familiar one. That would have been a cool concept. Also, whereas the first variant paid homage to Texas Chainsaw, and the last one you'll see pays tribute to another horror classic, I could never pinpoint if this was referencing one specific film. I mean, there are several horror films where people are electrocuted, but not one in my head that stands out as king. So whereas this one is a little lackluster, let's get back up to form with our third and final Halloween night ident. Now, I would be very surprised if you didn't know what this is a reference to. Of course, right as soon as you hear the screechy music and the stabbing, you recognise that it's paying homage to one of the most classic of all suspense films, Psycho, directed by the legendary Alfred Hitchcock. All the key iconography is here: the mock shower curtain that covers the two, the use of a weapon to stab its victim, the screeching music that is somewhat different to the original, probably so that the BBC didn't have to pay mega royalties. But all the same, short as it is, this sequence is to the point and absolutely spot on with its nod to a true horror classic. In summary, are the Halloween idents a success? Well, to some degree, yes. They incorporate pieces of iconography that are linked to terror, to fear, and to horror. Sure, it isn't perfect, variant 2 accounts for that, But the other two, particular variant 1, do a great job of taking the familiar BBC2 setup and giving it the perfect Halloween twist. I wish for each variant they chose a different setup to adapt rather than use the backdrop for paint each time, but it all still works as a concept. From what I can gather, these Halloween night idents were only used on Halloween of 1992, never to be reused or re-aired, which I think is a great shame. However, should BBC2 decide to ever go for a more horror-themed look again, as much as I think it would be cool to see these on air again, I think many others would agree with me that an overhaul and new designs would be truly chilling. And so we've come to the end, but before we go, the final words from our broadcaster. That was the Ident Review Extra. We hope you enjoyed and that you tune in next time. Keep an eye on the community tab and the Sunday catch-up for further news about this programme, as well as others here on AMTV. But until next time, have a good week, and we hope that you'll join us again soon. Good night.